Good evening, everybody. I'm Eric J. Chambers, and welcome to this special edition of the Cut Chronicles, as we're bringing you tonight a relationship show called We Need to Talk Relationships. You know, spring has sprung, as at least we're close to it here in the month of March, and perhaps it's time for you and so many others to do a little bit of spring cleaning in their relationships. And so tonight I've got some people who are going to be some outstanding panelists who are going to, I think, be able to help us to do some of the spring cleaning if that's what you need to do. You know, the great poet Nikki Giovanni once said that love is the only true adventure. Well, for many, that is true. There's nothing like having someone to love and to be loved. And of course, but for many, love continues to escape them year after year for one reason or another. And tonight, our guests, perhaps they'll get a chance to help you shed some light on maybe why you are missing out on love, and that could include me as well. So we got a fantastic program in store for you. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to introduce you to some of the people who are going to be a part of it, beginning down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She's going to be my co-host. She is the author of a new book that we're going to tell you about a little bit later in the program. And her name is Danielle A. Forbes. So Danielle, welcome, my friend.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
I am doing great. You're looking fantastic.
Thank you, as you are as well. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to discuss my favorite topic, relationships. So let's do this.
And of course, you have a book that we're going to be sharing in just a little bit. But nevertheless, I thought that you would be a fantastic, because of the fact that you're already a host anyway. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Danielle Forbes. I'm an author, a speaker, a host. I just started my new podcast again called On the Couch. It is on Spotify and quite a few other platforms. I'm the author of a fiction thriller titled Destiny, soon to be film. Also, I'm a host, so I've had a lot of things out there. I've had a talk show called Real Lives with Danielle Forbes. Now I have On the Couch with Danielle Forbes. So I'm also a speaker, inspirational speaker, motivational speaker. So I wear a lot of hats.
Well, wonderful.
Just to name a few.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. So we look forward to your input here because, of course, you know, not only the real life effects of relationships, but also, as you talked about, your book called Destiny. And so we're going to see how those two intersect with each other.
Absolutely.
Also in the program tonight, we have coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia. He is a noted relationship specialist, and his name is Dr. Gerald Hightower. So welcome, Dr. Hightower, to the program.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Chambers. Good to be with you. Miss Danielle, good to be with you all tonight. Excited about tonight and having some delicious dialogue in this area of relationships. It's an area that I'm passionate about. So thank you, Dr. Chambers. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Give us a little bit of your background.
So I always say, Dr. Chambers, I didn't choose this field, but I was chosen for it. So I bring you 18 years of pastoral counseling experience, serving as a premarital consultant. And my firm, Real Love Nation, is a relationship development, premarital consulting, and divorce recovery firm. And so I have a group of awesome people in the network. We also have even sex therapy for the married couples. But my specialty, my area of focus is really for singles, because the mission for Real Love Nation is building healthy love relationships. And so my passion, my drive is to equip single men and single women to move us into a place of connecting so that we can move toward marriage. And of course, the core piece that will bring us together, what I believe, Dr. Chambers, is about sharing compatibility of purpose. So that's what we teach. That's my passion. And again, thank you for the invitation tonight.
Okay, it is my pleasure. And of course, our final panelist on this evening's show is a friend of mine. She is a noted psychologist here in the Los Angeles area. And let's bring on Dr. Gloria Chance. Dr. Gloria, welcome aboard.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Tonight is so exciting. Yes, thanks for having us, Dr. Chambers.
Okay, Dr. Gloria, who's originally from Brooklyn, New York, I believe. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your profession, what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm a holistic psychologist. And I focus on the imagination so that we can all create possibilities and opportunities to be our best selves. But I also look at patterns. And tonight, as we talk about relationship, we'll look at how patterns and our trauma also inform how we move, not just in relationships with ourselves and our mate, but also with relationships in general. So I'm really excited to be here and to share some, hopefully some cool tips that will help people understand how to, process or get through whatever challenges they have.
Awesome. Well, we're expecting a wonderful evening here with the two of you giving us some great relationship tips. And again, prayerfully, again, it'll give people an opportunity, those who want to spring clean their relationship, or maybe you're on the verge of starting all over again. Tonight, if you have questions that you would like to ask any of the panelists, you can drop it into our comments, whether it be on Facebook, on YouTube, or right here on StreamYard. First question I'm going to kick off with COVID. This has been a very difficult time over the past year for people. And some people, ironically, are finding love through COVID. And then there are others who are basically in a standstill and they've been kind of like in quicksand for a whole year. Dr. Hightower, with your experience as a relationship specialist, what is your assessment of how to find love in this current age?
Well, what we found, Dr. Chambers, just like the church has had to transition and find different ways to provide ministry, we have to find different ways to develop relationships. So, of course, the online dating space has been something that's been existing for at least a good 10 to 15 years. I personally know couples now, before anyone gets all nervous, say, oh no, I will never do that. Listen, don't get nervous, because I personally know 3 couples that met online and are currently married. One couple, in fact, they are living in Texas and they are celebrating 10 years this year, 10 years being married, and they met through eHarmony. And so, listen, there are a lot of good ways to do it, but of course, we just have to provide some safeguards to make sure that we're doing it in a really safe manner to protect ourselves, and especially for our ladies to make sure they protect themselves. So that's one of the things that we provide at Real Love Nation, Dr. Chambers. We give ladies and gentlemen, give some key instructions on how to date safely, meeting people online, and of course, through the social media space as well.
Excellent. While some people are finding that love, there are others who are looking for love, but unfortunately, too many times, especially in the year and the time and the current space where we are with social media, what I've seen is some women who, or even guys as well, some people who are looking for love, are they, Dr. Gloria Chance, have they fallen in love with the likes of 300 likes as opposed to one love? Is that a
Yeah.
possibility that people are addicted to social media to the point where they don't want to give one person an opportunity? Because if I give this one person an opportunity, am I willing to let my fan club go or put them on the back burner and turn them down low?
Yeah, well, I have all kinds of thoughts about social media and what it does to the psyche. So my first point as a psychologist about social media is that people in general should stay off, especially if there's anything serious that they're trying to do, and especially about love, because you don't want people in your personal relationships, online. And again, I'm not clear, Dr. Chambers, in terms of the question, but I would say that that social media and our self-esteem are tied together, which is what you were talking about in terms of the likes. And I think that for anyone who makes that a priority, because we're talking about a fake world, right? Social media is a fake world. Whatever people put out there, as we know, even from the election, that lies and all kinds of things are online. And so I would say that that is a world that you want to use for entertainment purposes only, but not, for anything serious. That really is my personal opinion. I think that people can be damaged psychologically and traumatized, depending on how they're using social media.
Okay, Danielle, you have a question?
I'm just taking it all in, and I totally agree with the mister. A lot of people frown upon online dating, but I think during COVID, that was a lot of people saving grace a lot for singles. And I think it was actually a coping mechanism for the whole quarantine, because relationships are a very important part of life. It is, regardless of what's going on in the world. It's one of those things that keeps you sane, and it keeps you healthy. People that are in relationships, that are married, actually, studies show that they live longer. So I'm totally on board with him. As far as the social media and the likes, yeah, I think that social media is definitely overrated whenever it comes to relationships. And I think that it could play a bad part in relationships. I'm living proof of that. So yeah, so we can definitely put a pin in that for sure. Definitely.
Exactly. And Danielle, you mentioned something that I think is really important. And I wonder why is everybody so desperate in a year? Like, honestly, a year does sound like a long time, but this was an opportunity for all of us to reset and have a relationship with ourselves. So it is fascinating to see, because like many, I entered the pandemic. If you were seeing someone, you were hopeful that, okay, I'm going to quarantine with this person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately for me, and probably some of our listeners, he passed away during the pandemic. And so, there are all types of situations that are happening. And one of them that I think that is really important is this time has been a reset for all of us to look inside and understand, who are we in relationship with? Absolutely. In terms of who we are. And then will that help us get to a better relationship? And that's what, from a mate perspective. And I think so, because if you talk about social media, we haven't had a lot of time to focus on ourselves, right? Because we're always looking external, on the likes, on the this and that. So I really think that, if you are desperate for a relationship during COVID, you really should step back and pause. Because if you weren't in a relationship when it started, then maybe the universe, God, somebody trying to tell you something, like, take the time to work with yourself.
Amen. And I totally, and just to piggyback off that, it's so true. That most important relationship, the only relationship that's more important than the one with yourself, is the one with God. And I think the quarantine definitely, if, like you said, if you weren't already in a relationship or a marriage, this quarantine definitely played a major part in you learning who you are and just fixing and working on yourself, so that way when it is time to get back out there and outside is open up again,
exactly.
You've dealt with some issues. But like I said, the only relationship that's more important than the one with yourself is the one that you have with God. Because for me, if he's not first and foremost and center, then no other relationship is going to be, not even the one with myself. So I totally agree with you.
Okay, Dr. Hightower, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I was going to say, Dr. Chambers, I agree completely with Dr. Gloria. I shared this several times in the online classes that I've been teaching and the lives that I've been doing on YouTube and Zoom, as well as Facebook, that 2020 for me personally was a stripping season. It was a season where I really had to deal with some inward issues just for myself as a single man who's looking forward to being married. I realized there were some things that I really need to focus on, because typically when we're leading, when we're teaching, when we're pouring into others, we tend to not really spend enough time on self-care. And so self-care for me last year, because I wasn't traveling, which usually I'm on a plane traveling somewhere on an average of once to twice a month, because I wasn't traveling, it really gave me a lot of good time to spend quality time with God and really for God to deal with me. I call it the stripping season. I call it character upgrade season, where God was really developing me and get me into a place of having my character more Christ-like. Not that I was out there wilding out and in the club drinking a bottle of blood, sipping on gin and juice. I wasn't doing any of that.
Okay, if people want to be doing that, if that's what they want.
But God was really dealing with me about just being more Christ-like, being more purpose-driven, more spirit-led, than allowing myself to be spread out so thin that I'm doing a lot of stuff, but not allowing enough time for God to do a lot in me.
Amen.
Okay, as we move forward, I'd like to get a little bit deeper into the relationships specifically. Say, for instance, an individual who has a history of failed relationships. They're a really nice person, but it seems like they keep on getting the wrong kinds of people. How do you rectify that?
Can you define fail?
Well, say for instance, if a person, whether it be male or female, every time you turn around, they're in a relationship and it seems to be breaking up. Maybe sometimes, or even an abusive relationship, where perhaps we could even trace back, if we did, just like we can do COVID tracing, if we did some relationship tracing, maybe we can trace back to the fact that this person did not have the best upbringing, or they were raised in a home that was that had a lot of, say for instance, arguing, or a lot of domestic violence in it. And sometimes people are wondering why they can't hold a man or hold a woman, because maybe they're a little bit too argumentative or something like that. So say for instance, if a person has those issues, whether someone breaks up with them or they're breaking up with the other person, how do we rectify unresolved childhood issues?
Yeah, and so there's a lot in that question, but I would say, we all are products of trauma, and especially in the Black community, right? We think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We initially need food and shelter, right? And then we need safety. And those are things that in a lot of our communities we don't have. So even myself, I grew up, even though I'm a doctor now, I grew up in one of the worst neighborhoods in Brooklyn in the 70s. And, many of my friends didn't make it out. And a lot of them did. But the point is that the trauma from that situation it stayed with me throughout my adulthood. And until really I became a psychologist and understood the importance of doing my own work, did I understand the patterns. And so when you think about this, you're in a relationship and you have two people together, and see your physical body as an adult. What is really, and then visualize that adult body, and inside of that adult body is a baby, is a little child, a 2-year-old. That child in us never goes away. And that child who was damaged and hurt, sometimes it's even a small thing, but if it's unresolved, we create a story in our minds, mythology, which is the work that I do, that helps us protect ourselves. And so then when we run into people, and actually the other person has that same adult and then the child within inside. And so we really want to get to the point when we do our work that the two children can play together, because they're never going away. But the only way those two children can relate and play together is if you resolve those issues. And so how those issues show up in adult life is the pattern keeps being repeated and repeated. Because no matter what someone comes to you and says, if your story is men aren't any good, or women always, cheat or lie, if that's your story, you are going to create that every time. You're going to draw that person in to make that story true. And or you have this pattern of always being a certain way. So all you're going to see is that story, even when it's not true. And so I have techniques that I use with people when they're coming up with these stories about their mates. And I'll ask them, well, what makes the story true? Right? Because you really have to challenge yourself to know, are you really seeing that person for what's really happening? Or is that inner child within you, that wounded trauma, is that what's speaking? And usually that is what's speaking if it's unresolved.
And what is the best way to heal from that? Because I know people who, it seems like they're holding on to those old childhood pains instead of the good in their lives, and they have a tendency to revert back to the way it was. And even when it comes to, say, for instance, past relationships, let's face it, you have some people who get into new relationships, but they fail to check their baggage at the door of the new relationship.
Because you can't. You have to heal that inner child. And that's what's hard in the Black community, because we have to go to therapy. You got to go to therapy to deal with it. And it doesn't mean it's a long time. You can find therapists nowadays that do techniques like in expressive arts, which is a lot of the work that I do, which is dance, music, all different types of therapy that's mind-body, that will release some of this quickly. But you can't, if you don't know yourself, how are you going to know and be able to deal with and take care of another?
Dr. Hightower?
Yes, Dr. Chambers, Many of us are familiar with the term soul ties, where a lot of people are in terms of being hurt, suffering, as Dr. Gloria just said, dealing with these traumas from even stemming from childhood. A lot of people are carrying soul wounds, not necessarily soul ties from previous relationships, but soul wounds. How your mind, how your spirit, how your emotions have been negatively impacted by your environment and coming up as a child, or in the multiple relationships that you've been in. And so a lot of people have never taken the time to close doors, break free. A lot of people have never had full closure on that divorce or the sudden loss of a loved one. And so those traumas will stay with us until we choose to A, acknowledge that they are there, B, confront them, and as Dr. Gloria said, take the time in confronting and acknowledging that I really do have a problem, taking the time to go get therapy or to get some counseling so that you can get to a place of emotional wholeness, because only from the place of emotional wholeness can you be ready for a relationship again.
Once again, everybody, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is a special edition of the Cut Chronicles. We call it We Need to Talk Relationships. And I am so blessed that we have some outstanding artists and outstanding guests tonight here with us to share light on relationships. One of the questions that I have for you, Dr. Gloria Chance, is dealing with the childhood trauma, dealing with the unresolved childhood issues. Um, a lot of times, and you mentioned this just moments ago about the fact that when it comes to especially those of us in the Black community, why is there such a taboo for us to go seek counseling from psychologists or psychiatrists as opposed to other communities? And of course, I know for one, we have been taught for many years that the church, you can go to your pastor about anything, but what happens when your pastor does not have that kind of a background? Because there's a lot of pastors, let's face it, who didn't go to seminary, or even if they went, they don't specialize in relationships, or human, behavior.
Mm-hmm.
What
For
is it?
sure.
Why is it that people, say, for instance, hold on to that stigma when when really maybe just a few sessions with a real professional who is neutral, not a friend, not a relative, not even the pastor, but someone who's neutral, may be, the person that can help turn their lives around, because too many times maybe they've heard yes from people when there should be a no. Or maybe, maybe a psychologist like yourself would be in the position to put us in front of the mirror, as where those that we know personally can't do that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple. I think that obviously pastors can help because we need to address the mental health issue in our communities for sure. I don't think anyone would deny that. I also think that they can be helpful from a spiritual standpoint. But I think that when we start getting to the mind is so the mind, body, spirit, right? So the church takes care of the spirit, the physicians take care of the body, and the psychologists, counselors, and those type people, therapists take care of the mind. And the mind was where a lot of, the way what we think is what we do, right? Our thinking creates our behavior. So I would think and hope that if people can see that the mind is just like your tricep or anything, it's a muscle. It's a muscle. And guess what? We know so little, or we use so little of our mind, which is why I focus in the imagination, because creating and expanding our creative mind, which is the right side of our brain, will allow us to have more joy, empathy, emotional intelligence, all those things that will make us happier. But we've got to understand tips like stress reduction. How do we do mindfulness? How do we meditate so that we can be focused? How do we become intentional in the things that we're doing for ourselves and for the people in our lives? And so I think that we have got to understand better about what the mind and the brain is. It controls every part of our body. And so if pastors, et cetera, can maybe get educated in how to refer people to professionals and understanding it's not a ding on their capabilities, that, you know, from a spiritual realm, that's their kind of place. And I think from a mental perspective, that they need to get professionals.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
think.
yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well,
yeah,
I think it begins
also
with dispelling the stigma that we have in the Black community about
Absolutely.
dealing with whatever the problem is. It may not even be a relationship problem. It could be some other kind of
right,
problem that has weighed a person down all their lives.
right.
Because when we look, a lot of times I observe people when I'm out in public, and just to see their facial expressions. And there are times in which I see people who are sitting there looking just as lonely. And every now and then I wonder, what is it that has that person either so stressed out, or looking so worried? It could be something immediately, or it could be something that has been, I guess, with them for years. Danielle, you have a question for the panel.
No, I'm actually, I really want to piggyback on the last question, because I dealt with that for many of years. And I think until you are transparent about what you've gone through, what your childhood was like, what your upbringing was, you will continue to repeat those same patterns time after time, relationship after relationship. You will continue to bring in all of that baggage until you really seek therapy. And it's sad because, like you said, for whatever reason, especially in the Black community, a lot of people feel like it's weird or it's off to go see a therapist, and they think it's normal to just be in these dysfunctional relationships and carry all these wounds, all these past failures, all these mistakes into the next relationship, trying to change the ending. And I didn't realize that until I was probably 35 years old, and I found myself like crying myself to sleep every night, and I couldn't understand what the problem was. And it wasn't until the Holy Spirit dealt with me and let me know that the fact that I grew up without a dad, because I was raised by a single mom and both my parents were very young, that I was missing that first love, which is a daughter's first love is her dad.
Right.
And I always take it a step further. I say, a father can either be his daughter's first love or her first heartbreak. And if it's the latter, those patterns will continue to repeat themselves until that little girl that Dr. Gloria stated is able to face those demons and say, I've been dealing with this for so long, and it's because I never had that father figure or that man to say, this is how you should be treated, and this is what's acceptable, and this is not acceptable. And until you come face to face with that, and you're transparent with yourself, and you really take it a step further to get some therapy, to say, you know what, I never really had a successful relationship, and I don't want history to continue to repeat itself. It will, until we are able to be honest and take it a step further and really give ourselves the opportunity to be the best version of ourselves. And that is through just being honest and really taking it a step further and getting therapy.
Oh, yes. Danielle, I just want to add on to that, because one of the things people think when you have a pattern, they'll go, oh, well, I don't do that at work.
Yes.
But, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you have an attitude, or if you have, bad attitude or whatever it is, when you get to work, you might spice it up a little bit, cover it up. Yes. But underneath that cover is still the same stank, which
absolutely
you cannot hide. And so that's why it's important also to address these things, because they impact every part of your life. And so
1000%.
People, really looking sad and all of that, it's because, like, the work I do, I want to help people have possibilities, like look towards the future, have something to look forward to, so that you can, and it's not all a relationship. And if you look at a lot in our relationship, in our communities, we really do focus so much on a relationship. And even your question, Dr. Chambers, implies that it's wrong when a relationship fails. Sometimes a relationship has an expiration date. Sometimes that person's in your life for a reason, a season, or lifetime. And it doesn't mean that it's a failure if you don't, live together forever. So I think that we have to also shift how we think about relationships. relationships and how we judge people.
Speaking of living together, say for instance, for a person, especially a female who has been in a relationship and she's been shacking with a guy for 2, 3, 4
I haven't
years.
heard that in a long time.
That's old school there. So for those of you youngsters who don't know what shacking is, that means you're living together with a person, basically living as a married couple, but there's no ring. For some people, it works because that's just the way that it is. But then again, there are others who are looking for, I guess, a little bit more security, so to speak, with the ring and with the, the commitment. What do you say to a person who's been in a relationship for a while and they want that, but their mate doesn't?
Well, the new term, Dr. Chambers, is actually cohabitating for economical purposes. we don't use the term shacking anymore. Shacking just immediately sound like we just sexing all day and all night. So now we're actually cohabitating for economical purposes.
Expound on
yeah,
that, please, sir.
Yeah, anytime, Dr. Chambers, anytime that we are in a relationship for a prolonged period of time, and I always want to encourage my sisters to understand this, that we as men, we do not take all year, 2 years, 3 years to figure out if we want to build a life with you. Most of us as men who are very intentional, we can usually pretty much determine within 6 months and certainly within 12 months if you have the potential that we want to build a life with you. It does not take 2, 3, 4 years, so please don't do that. And then I know that we're in the 21st century era and people are cohabitating and that kind of thing. I am totally against it because it doesn't allow us to build a relationship in the most healthiest fashion. If we're going to build a relationship in the healthiest way, then it is establishing ourselves spiritually, it's connecting mentally, and learning how to support each other emotionally. Because the physical aspect of the relationship can happen too easy. It happens naturally, and you don't even have to love a person at all to have sex with a person. So we don't want to get ourselves into that because it doesn't allow us to build a relationship in the most healthiest fashion. So my thought, and what I live by, Dr. Chambers, is that we're going to build a relationship. We don't want to move in together, and all those kind of things. Let's take our time. Let's build a relationship in a way that's going to allow all the other pieces to connect. And then the sex or the physical connection, that aspect of the relationship will just be the icing on the cake.
So
I totally agree. I mean, I'm sure the audience doesn't want to hear two doctors say you should not shack up or cohabitate for economic purposes. We should not do that. But I 1000% agree, because the issue with sex is I think most people mistake that for love. And because it feels good and look, endorphins. So the whole thing about anything that feels good, you can go work out and get endorphins to come out and feel good. But sex also does that. And so it's a false sense of love because it's more the endorphins come up. And so then we fall in love, we marry the person. Well, guess what? The relationship isn't going to work. And I agree, Dr. Hightower, that also taking boundaries into play, right? When you don't live together, then you can create boundaries that are healthy for you and healthy for that person. And guess what? We should be observing that person. We should be looking and saying, are there behaviors that I can trust? What are the red flags? Are we really compatible? And oftentimes we're afraid to investigate those things. We'd rather go to your girlfriend. Oh my God, he did this and he did that. And why did he do this? Well, the girlfriend really say, I don't know, because I don't know him. Neither do you as the person who's trying to get to know him. And unless you take the time to set up, understand what you're looking for, how you want to be treated, what are your boundaries, what are your goals? Do they meet? Are they compatible with that other person? These are all thinking, logical things we should be doing before we get here.
Well,
and Dr. Chambers, if I could just say one more thing to that point, Dr. Chambers, because I want to really say this for my brothers, for the men out there. Full disclosure, I have lived with a woman that I was dating. I have done that before. All right. I've done the whole shacking thing. Let's call it what it is. I've done that. And, we did it because we were really cohabitating for economical purposes. We were moving that relationship toward marriage. I was being very intentional. But in the end, as Dr. Gloria said, not all relationships are meant to be forever. A lot of relationships have an expiration date, and you don't get to see that as clearly nor as swiftly as you need to see it if you are cohabitating. So I'm really encouraging my brothers as well as my sisters, please don't go there. Don't do it. You'll be able to evaluate that relationship in a much with a much clearer head if you don't move in together before marriage.
And Dr. Gloria, you talked about something just a moment ago I wanted to dovetail on, and that is sharing your relationship issues with your girlfriends. What kind of advice do you give women, especially, and men, but just people in general? What kind of advice do you give, or what do you say to them who are sharing their stories and their, especially the bad parts? Because I understand that a lot of times everybody's not happy with your success. Somebody might talk you out of your dreams because they don't have theirs. You may have the dream husband, the dream house, the dream car, but maybe he doesn't have the dream job, and somebody else is trying to talk you out of that, or vice versa. What is your advice to people when it
Yeah,
comes
unfortunately, that
to listen
happened.
to?
Yeah, that happened to me and my ex-husband, where he absolutely, allowed people to get in his ear with information that wasn't correct, and it impacted our relationship tremendously. I would say I tell all of my girlfriends, and I really encourage you, if you need a sounding board, talk to people, but let them know you need a sounding board. But I would really caution you from taking advice, and this is why. Unless it's from an objective person, the person who's speaking with you, if they're untrained, they're going to give you advice based on their trauma. So, if a person thinks that they've always been cheated on, they're likely going to tell you he's probably cheating, right? And so therefore, which might not be the case. So I think it is important to realize that when girlfriends and your men friends are giving you advice, they mean it, with all due respect, and they want to help you. But it is coming from a place of their trauma and how they see the world, because trauma gives us a lens into how we see things. And how we see things is how we actually behave and how we give advice, etc. So I would really be careful about that. I would use my friends as a sounding board, but I would make my own decisions. I would take information and make my own decisions. But I would probably go to a therapist. You can go to a therapist for 1 or 2 sessions. You don't have to plan a whole year or two. No, if you connect with the therapist and they are speaking logically to you and you find a match, then you may want to consider extending that time. But I would encourage people, go to 1 session just to see what it's like when you have issues and you have a pattern. Give it a chance, just like when you go to a gym. Take that gym membership that you don't use, that we haven't been able to use during COVID, and put it towards, the gym for your mind. Work out your mind, work out your brain so that you can heal and grow that muscle so that you can have the best life that you can have, because life is really short. And with COVID, etc., people have been dying. And there's oftentimes, we need to be able to recover, and you can get the skills if you go to a therapist, even just once or twice. Absolutely.
Okay, Danielle, you have something to add or ask?
Yes, I'm taking it all in. And although I'm not a doctor, I am single, and I date, so I know what's out there. I know how it goes. But I love everything that they're saying, because everything that Dr. Gloria brought up and Dr. Hightower, it's so true. And those were all things that that I faced, and through trial and error, because at one point I definitely made that mistake. And I'll be very transparent and honest that I moved in with someone after knowing them barely a month, and he did become my fiance after about 6 months, but it did not last. And so it was definitely a false sense of security. So I totally agree with you. And I had to learn that the hard way. So everything that they're saying is super helpful. So I'm ripping a page from it. But I'm excited to know on the flyer about these 7 things that every woman needs to know about a man. That's what I want to get to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure the
Okay, Dr. Gerald Hightower.
Yeah,
That's a
bring
great
that
segue.
on.
Great segue. Of course, you have a book that's going to be coming out here shortly,
Yes,
later
sir.
this week, and it's called The 7 Man Secrets That Every Woman Should Know: How to Understand and Attract Higher Quality Men. And so, Dr. Hightower, that is the cover of it right there. And
Nice.
of course, it's going to be coming out later this week. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about that?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Chambers, and thank you, Danielle, for the underhand pitch that I can just
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm like, "Ooh, let me
you
hear
threw me
this."
up a lob so I can just dunk it like bow. You know, thank you, Danielle. Appreciate
I
that.
got you.
Thank you for the lob. Thank you for the lob. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Good looking out. So yeah, this is my first ebook, Dr. Chambers, and this is really something. You know, it's amazing because I'm blessed to have some really wonderful people in my camp, people who have been a part of my online ministry for 5 years or more, and so it's something I taught on back on Periscope, and on it started trending on Periscope and Twitter. And before I knew it, like within a couple of days, I was trending #1 in the world on this particular subject, which also tapped into sexual compatibility, which was just amazing. But 7 Man Secrets Every Woman Should Know, it's really me giving our sisters the playbook, if you will, on the emotional and mental makeup of us as men. And I even posted earlier today, Dr. Chambers, that many women would be really surprised to know that men and women, we really do want many of the same things in a relationship. We express it differently. We may prioritize them differently, but we want really many of the same things. So one of the #1 secrets that I will share, just give you a little tiny piece. One of the secrets about us men that women really need to know is that we desire to be your superhero. Ladies, if you understand the power that you have in our lives, we love to serve you. We love to please you. And if you even think about from cartoons, because I'm a cartoon guy coming back from, you know, the old school cartoons, not this SpongeBob and all this stuff, but the old school cartoons. Every superhero had a damsel in distress that he was rescuing, right? Superman had Lois Lane. You know, my favorite superhero, Underdog, has Sweet Polly Purebred. I'm dating myself. You know,
You guys just like stacking up the same kind of equivalence.
I'm dating myself now, Dr. Gloria.
and Fred Flintstone had Wilma.
Fred Flintstone had Wilma.
Okay,
You know, Speed Racer had
right
Trixie. You know, there was always some wonderful damsel in distress that the superhero was rescuing. And ladies, that's something that's innate within us, because by nature, God wired us as men to be protectors. And so one of the things that a woman needs to understand is her power to influence us. Ladies, you are our greatest gift. And I really want to encourage my sisters to understand there's no need at all for you to ever pursue a man in relationship, because you are the gift. We are blessed by having you in our lives. And so when a woman understands her worth and she understands her power, then the words that she speaks are going to always serve to build a man up or tear him down. A woman who understands her worth and understands her power, for most of us as men who are leaders, such as Dr. Chambers and myself, our #1 or our #2 love language is going to be words of affirmation. We need to be affirmed by your words. We may get, Dr. Chambers has been out in this space as a media professional for over 25 years. Everybody tells him he's great, but there's one woman that he needs to hear, baby, you did a great job for today. And that's from his woman. And the same thing is true for me and most of us as men. So that's one of the things, ladies, that I really want to encourage you to understand. We need that affirmation from you. We grow by it, and it really helps us to understand we can go out in the world and take over when we have your support by our side.
Absolutely. Even though right now I'm an unrestricted free agent, Dr.
Unrestricted free agent. I got you. Listen, I'm gonna help you get that contract, Dr. Chambers. I'm gonna help you get that contract.
I'm gonna do that thing right now. Unrestricted free agent.
Yeah,
I'm relationally unemployed right now. Looking for work. You know? But nevertheless, I think that is right on point that you said, and not just that the men need the affirmation, but I also think that women need it. Because there's
absolutely.
times in which we have women who are doing an amazing job, and she should not have to wait to get the affirmation on social media.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the affirmation is not even just the words, but it's a nice warm embrace. It's a nice.
You know what, Dr. Chambers, that's true. But what Dr. Hightower was saying that I really believe, because I'm one of those women where I've been married a couple of times, and I still love my ex-husbands. I still love my exes. We still have relationships. And when I was with them, exactly what Dr. Hightower was saying, because I'm a CEO of a company. I'm a technologist. I do all of these like crazy things that are a little bit out there. But at the same time, when I am in a relationship, I love the idea of a man doting on me, making my life easier, me being the damsel in distress in, the 2021 version is really what I love, actually playing that role, because it gives me the love that I need. And to Dr. Hightower's point, it gives the man the love that he needs and the respect that he needs. So I think it is important to understand those two sides. And as a woman, I don't lose my power if I am being a woman for my mate. And I think that today, so many women feel that when you're in these high power positions and you have this, that, and the other, that, you got to keep that. And that's masculine energy, again, from the left side of the brain. You have to turn that off and turn on the right side of your brain, which is the emotions, the joy, the sensuality, all of those things. And you really have to understand that about yourself and about your brain and your mind.
Beautifully said, Dr. Gloria. And Dr. Chambers, I'll make this final piece, and this kind of takes us to the opposite end of the spectrum, infidelity. So in my study as a pastoral counselor, now this year, my 18th year, hamburger, I can't believe it. But when I talk to so many couples who have gone through infidelity or dealing with infidelity, it's amazing where men who have cheated on their wives, they normally cheat with some woman who doesn't even measure up to the beautiful woman that he has at home. And I'm like, bruh, you cheated on your wife with this booger wolf at work? Really? But what happens is
booger wolf.
Booger wolf. I mean, are you serious? You got this beautiful
queen
at home and you cheated with her, but guess what? It wasn't so much the physical attraction or him being led away by lust. He was in dire need emotionally. So his wife at home is telling him about all the things that he doesn't do well, that you do this, you do that. Oh, you ain't nothing. Oh, when you going to get better? When you going to do this? When are you going to make more money? When are you going to? And so he feels totally torn down at home. His emotional love tank is empty at home. But when he goes to work, here's this woman says, oh my God, Elgin, that was an excellent PowerPoint. Oh my God, you're so brilliant. You're so amazing. And so it starts off with some little innocent lunch, and he's being built up. His emotional love tank is being filled by this booger wolf at work. And that translates into a physical relationship, and there is the affair.
Well, absolutely. And unfortunately, the nagging is also, I think, for anyone who does that, it is a desire. It's your absence of something also. And so when you are so focused on your mate and your mate's issues and challenges, then that in itself is a problem, because the only person we can change and manage is our own self. And so I would encourage people, if you are starting to do that, that's trauma again. That is trauma, and you haven't done your work. You need to go do your work. And I saw a note that said that, friends and therapists aren't created the same. Totally agree. That's why I'm encouraging people, if you go to a therapist, whatever, test them out. If you got to try 5, 6, 7 until you get that connection and trust, that's important too, because this is your life we're talking about.
One of the interesting things, you're talking about the cheater, and we just had a comment here just a moment ago that talked about, speaking about, here it is, from my friend Laporta. Wait a minute now. You
I
call
saw
them
it.
the
I
booger
always
wolf.
get in trouble.
Yeah, because it's not that you're justifying his behavior, are you?
No, sir, not at
Oh,
all.
no.
I'm not justifying his behavior at all. My point in stating booger wolf, if you'll excuse that expression, I just mean that it's a woman who is far less than the caliber, far less of the caliber of the woman that he's married to.
Somebody's dating a booger wolf.
Hey, and what about
No, and I
Dr.
had
Gerald?
another name. I actually had another name for it, but I wasn't gonna.
But
I
what
wasn't
about
gonna
when you
say
flip the
that.
script? What about if you flip that script and it's the woman who is having the affair with the male booger
With the
wolf?
booger wolf.
Yeah, I've counseled that. In fact, Dr. Chambers, there's a well-known bishop who you know. I won't mention his name, but he came to me for counseling. He and his wife have been married for 18 years at that time. And he came to me, I mean, literally crying. His wife had cheated on him, and he caught her. He had been cheating. She had been cheating with the musician. And
Oh my goodness.
horrible situation.
Mess around with the help, huh?
Long story short, I was able to counsel with them, and you know, they stuck together. And the thing that I counseled him with was that, you know, you have to understand that there are some things that you're responsible for in not keeping her covered. If you're always on the road, that leaves a doorway open, and it doesn't justify her actions, but it leaves a doorway open for the enemy to tempt her, because she's in dire need of your attention, your affection, your emotional support, so on and so forth. So yeah, the situation works both ways, of course. So ladies, please excuse me. Don't mean to cast any aspersions on any of our beautiful sisters. I just mean that, you know, this man usually will cheat with a woman who is not of the same caliber of the woman that he's married to when a man cheats.
Yeah, and I think, you know, pull that all together. The bottom line is what, you know I continue to say is you have to do your work. You need to get your tools, because then you would probably choose a person who at least can work with you and know, oh God, I'm starting to feel temptation. Do you have a relationship where you can have those kind of conversations, where you can go to your man, or he can come to you and say, honey, I'm really starting to, you know, feel like I'm wandering my mind, or my whatever heart is starting, you know, let's talk about it. So that's, again, back why it's really important, even in dating, to choose someone who has tools that can help you all understand how to communicate, how to work through issues before they become big issues.
You know, another interesting dynamic when it comes to cheating is, man, cheaters hate to be cheated on, right?
That part.
Cheaters hate to be cheated on.
That part.
This is true.
Because I've seen situations where perhaps a guy has cheated on his woman, and then when she messes around with somebody else, it's like the end of the world. And I just think that if people were to go back to the old, the golden rule, do unto others as you will have them do unto you,
Yes, sir.
because we've seen too many situations of that where people have even murdered their significant other. And I remember talking to a guy once upon a time who was having an affair with a lady. He was married. And I asked him that same thing, and he got upset when she was just talking to another person. And then I brought that to his attention. I said, man, you're married. And I said, cheaters hate to be cheated on.
Right.
Because a lot of times people cannot take the same medicine that they're dosing out. Dr.
True.
Hightower, in your years of experience, tell us, why do you believe that people cheat, specifically men?
Again, Dr. Chambers, the first and foremost thing is a lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of emotional wholeness. Because most men, once he commits himself to a woman, he isn't led away by lust so much because this woman was more well endowed than his wife, but there's something emotional that he's lacking. There's an area of brokenness in him that he's never addressed. And this is because, and again, to the point of my book, 7 Man Secrets Every Woman Should Know, most of us as men, we were not taught how to express ourselves and how to address our emotions. We were taught to suppress our emotions. And so a lot of men have a desire to do the right thing, but due to a lack of emotional wholeness and overall emotional intelligence, they find themselves in these crazy, predicaments. And so I think most men, when they cheat, it's usually some kind of emotional trauma that's never been addressed, never been healed, and or that they have never learned how to discipline themselves in how they govern their relationships from a sexual perspective. If a man doesn't have discipline, then he is subject to cheat.
You make it sound so pretty, Dr. Hightower. I just got to jump right in there.
Come on in, Danielle. Come on in.
That sounds so pretty. But I'm in this love and relationships group, and that same question was asked, and they said, why do men cheat? And I love the answers. And I think it's real simple. There's two, because they can, but Steve Harvey said it best, because there's so many women out there willing to cheat with them. Yes, it can be because they can't, really relay their emotions and so on and so forth. But sometimes it's not even that deep. Sometimes it's just because they can, because it's, it's a selfish move, or they see a woman that they find very attractive and they're like, I don't think that my girl or my wife is going to find out about this if I go and do this tonight. And I think that men are very in the moment. I feel like women look at the big picture. That's probably why, I hate to say this, but when women decide to cheat, we most likely can get away with it forever. The man will probably never find out unless we just feel the need to tell them, because women are more we look at the big picture, whereas men are kind of in the moment. They're like, man, this girl looks good. I'm going to go do this today. And if my girl finds out, I'll deal with it then. But I think it's just a lot of temptation, especially now more than ever, especially living here in South Florida. I mean, I feel bad for men that want to be faithful. These women in South Florida make it very hard. It's tough. So yes, I had to definitely jump in and say that.
I would add too, though, because we're talking about heterosexual monogamous relationships, but we also know in today's world there are a lot of different relationship configurations now. You want to be fluid, you want to have multiple mates, you want to, all of that's there. Which again, means that you need to know as a woman what you want, what you're looking for, and you need to be brave enough to ask those questions up front, to investigate, so that again, you set boundaries as you're getting ready to know a man, so you don't get caught up or shocked by some of these potentials, because there are a lot of options out there today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It comes back though, Dr. Gloria and Danielle, it comes back to a man having discipline. Listen, I'm here in Atlanta, and I mean, single women are abounding. I mean, in an abundance. And then with me being a heterosexual male, I mean, opportunities abound. I mean, literally. I mean,
Atlanta,
I've heard.
And I don't know how rated double R I can keep it righteous and real. But listen, they will hand them to you on a silver platter. Okay.
I heard.
And so now, as a man, if you're not disciplined enough to understand your own worth, your own value, and that you only want to be committed to one woman, you can get caught up easily. So it all goes back to discipline, whether or not you're single or if you are married or in a committed relationship, it leads back to discipline.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It
and then,
is.
So
I think
Dr. Hightower,
discipline.
How do you tell women then how to look for discipline? How do you look for that in a man? How do you know if a man is disciplined?
That's a great question. It's really about where he is in his singleness. You can look at him, and I shared this with a woman that I was dating, and fortunately we're still friends today. But she had a challenge with the plethora of women who are on my page when I post on social media. And she had a challenge with that. And she was like, all these women all on your page. And, so she had a challenge with that. Listen, are you going to focus more on the reactions of a woman, or are you going to focus on what your man is doing? Because if you notice my response and my communication with women, it is uniformed across the board. There's no terms of endearment. Hey, sweetie pie and all that. There's no terms of endearment. I'm straight across the board. So if you focus on your man, and ladies, if you will look at how a man conducts himself, how does he interact with women? If you're out with him, does he turn his head around like an owl if a woman walks by with a big bow? You know, those kind of things. How does he interact with the waitress or the woman at the checkout counter? So those little things, Dr. Gloria, are good ways to indicate how disciplined a man is and how healthy his communication is with women overall. Because however a man communicates with other women is how he's going to communicate with you.
And I got to jump in there too. And I got to say this.
With what you were just saying there, because by virtue of what I do, I get a chance to, I've been a red carpet reporter here in Hollywood for 25 years or so. Mm-hmm. So I get a chance to meet the best of the best. And then if you go through my Facebook page, there's all these beautiful women, like we have here with Dr. Gloria and we have here with Danielle. But I'm proud of this fact. Even as a single man, I've never slid into someone's, say for instance, their DM and tried to get with
down in the DMs.
I'm so happy to hear that, Dr. Chambers.
Well, I haven't. But I can understand how for some women it would be a challenge. So whenever I do get in a relationship again, it may be a challenge. And basically I would just, try to reaffirm to the person that if it was that glorious, then why am I with you? You know what I mean? Because I got like 5,000 Facebook friends, quote unquote, but at the same time, I don't even know most of those people. And I see the beautiful girls left and right, just like the next guy. And I'll commend, but I don't do the terms of endearment, especially with people I don't know. And I always try to keep it professional so that just in case, and especially if I'm in a relationship, that if you were to go through my post and all of that stuff, there's nothing that's incriminating. I know how to give a person a compliment and do it the same compliment that I can give you in person or I keep them on the front page. So anybody can read it. That's just a practice for me. Now, I've had people who have, reached out to me like, who've slid into my DM. And then they'll do one of those things like, hi, how are you and stuff. And I just say hi and I keep it going because I don't know what their motive is. I don't even know if it's really a woman. I don't know if it's somebody masquerading in the background. So I don't even get caught up in that. And so, but it takes a certain kind of confidence and a certain kind of esteem to be able to allow your significant other to have friends of different, because they for the most part, you knew these people before you met them for them in a lot of cases.
But this is the maturity, I think.
Now that I'm with you, I have to go and delete every number and every friend and all of that stuff. That's too stressful in a relationship to me.
But Dr. Chambers, this is the point. If you have done your work and if you have self-esteem, if you've moved up the hierarchy of needs where you have safety, you have a decent job, you can take care of yourself, then you can look for love and you can be mature enough to handle whatever has to be handled. So if you're a professional and you have a lot of contacts like I do, I work mostly around men. So yeah, I've had people who've had problems with that, but that's an indication if that person can't handle your lifestyle, then, and you're not planning on changing it, then that's not a fit.
Yeah, Dr. Gloria, most men who have a beautiful woman like yourself and you work around a lot of men, most men are going to have a challenge with that. But one thing is sure, there are some men who are very, very much at ease. They're very comfortable with knowing what their woman does. If Danielle does what she does in the media space and she's working with men or working with athletes and so on and so forth, there are some men who are really secure in that. We are cool. For me, I'm cool. I'm totally okay with dating an alpha female who may be out there and have a lot of interaction with other men. I'm cool. I'm going to watch you. I know men. I don't trust them, but I'm going to watch you to see if you are really, just quite fond of all the male attention. But if I see your balance and you can handle it and it's not something you're enamored with, then that's cool. We got a chance to make a really good relationship. Dr. Chambers, you're doing well, sir. I'm going to get you signed up in a contract because you're putting some good nuggets out here tonight. And your future wife might be watching this broadcast. Praise God.
Praise him. Well, once again, everybody, I'm Eric J. Chambers. This is a special edition of the Cut Chronicles right here on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have some questions, now is the time, as we're only going to be here for just a few more minutes, probably to the bottom of the hour, unless it warrants more time. But nevertheless, our guest this evening, coming to us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is Danielle Forbes. Coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Gerald T. Hightower. And from right here in Los Angeles, Dr. Gloria Chance, who's a psychologist. And so this is quite interesting. And what I want to know is, say, for instance, for the people who have been in relationships where a person has cheated, sometimes it's not recommended, but there are times when once they work out the details about why that happened, the relationship can be better. So is it because, and I know that it's not a one size fit all when it comes to that. What do you say about that, Dr. Hightower?
Oh, it's absolutely possible. There's a couple, they're in Los Angeles, and there was infidelity in their marriage. They ended up getting divorced. They were divorced for 2.5 years. I never gave up on this couple. I was mad at both of them, but I continued to love them both, counseling with them both separately. I never gave up on them. I kept praying for them. And then as I was away, one weekend I was up in the mountains, and I get this phone call from the wife, and she tells me that her and her husband were reconciling, and I got to be a part of their remarriage, getting remarried, and they now have been together for 19 years. And so
so it's possible. So just because that happens doesn't mean that it is the end.
No,
and
sir.
Because it doesn't happen doesn't mean that it's the end.
Absolutely. It can work. It can work. And as you said, it can actually come back together even stronger, even better, because we both realize what we did wrong. We both realize the doorways that we opened that allowed for our marriage to dissolve or for infidelity to take place. And so it is recoverable. And many times the relationship will be even stronger. It's not always the case, but it is possible.
You know, the best, I took training under a man who probably was 85 or 90 now, but he said he had been married for 50 years. And he said that he expects that all relationships that he said, well, let me say that over. He had been married for 50 years, and he said that they had had 8 different relationships. And so we were perplexed. And he said, in a relationship with each other, they had 8 different relationships. Because if you are in a relationship and you're not growing together, then you're not going to make it. And so getting through infidelity, death, whatever the life trauma is, it does create a new relationship. And so as long as you're able and willing and have the skills to continue to go through the challenges and rebuild so that you create something new and better every time, then that is really what you want to be able to do with your.
Wow.
Okay, we have a question here. The question from the Yes Show. What are your professional thoughts on keeping exes as friends when in a new or seasoned relationship? Are there boundaries, no-nos? What say you?
That is a recipe.
I confess that I'm actually friends with my exes, but they don't live anywhere near me. So I can do it from afar. And I do like the idea of someone who knows you, who's been in your life. Like my mom and dad have passed away, so many people. So it is important for me to keep, especially people who I've been married to have those relationships because they're part of my history. But I do have boundaries, and I'm really clear that if I see them or whatever, I'm not trying to be with you. And obviously, if I'm with a man and he has a problem with it, I have no issue just saying to my ex, "Hey, I'm in a relationship, and I'm not available." Whatever.
Yeah,
Okay,
my
Dr.
story,
Hightower?
Dr. Chambers. Yeah, my story, how my very first paid client was one of my exes, a lady that I was dating who I loved dearly. We didn't work out. We remained friends. 2 years later, she got married. And 6 months into the marriage, she called me and told me that her and her husband wanted to counsel with me. Now, of course, I had met her husband even before they got married. He ended up being a great guy. Because we had a great relationship where our relationship wasn't sexual, he told me that caused him to have a great level of respect for me. And so we bonded, as brothers, even before they were married. And then once they were married, 6 months in, they were like, wow, we're having some challenges. Let's call G. And so that was actually my first paid client. And it happened to be an ex, someone that I was dating, and the relationship didn't work out, but we maintained a friendship. But boundaries, as Dr. Gloria said, boundaries are everything, because some people will blur the lines and they feel like they have rights, that they can have a say on who your current person is. You have to draw the line and make sure that your current person is respected and not disrespected by the ex.
I would like to say to the person that asked that question, I think it's all on the case by case basis. You know what I mean? I think that it's going to depend on what that relationship was with that ex, and why is he or she still trying to be your friend, and in what capacity, So if it's a person that already has trust issues, or if there's trust issues in the relationship, being friends with an ex, I think is just going to intensify it. I don't know. I mean, there's only one ex that we are not on any type of speaking terms whatsoever. And it's because he feels like that's a coping mechanism for him. Why? I don't know. Maybe he feels like if, he continues to be friends with me, that feelings might grow. But for me, there are exes that I can see and say, oh, hey, but I'm certainly not like having phone conversations with them or anything like that. So honestly, I think it's just on a case by case basis. If you are strong enough to handle that, by all means, but I would definitely say tread lightly, because it could be trouble. It could definitely be a recipe for disaster. So I would say tread lightly and use your best judgment. That's my opinion.
Well, especially if you're being sexual, if you're still being intimate with your ex, and you can't control that, you should not be talking.
Absolutely.
Danielle, you seem like a really nice, classy lady who can just pull her hair back and the ponytail's like, wait, hold up. Who's she? Wait, what's she trying to do? Like, you can just take it there real quick.
I think that's really more of a subjective situation. As Danielle said, it's not across the board with everyone. I've been married twice, and in both of those situations, it didn't happen overnight, but nevertheless, it did happen, where we ended up in situations where I'm a firm believer that just because you're exes doesn't mean you have to be enemies.
Yes.
And because I love my peace. Here where I am, man, there's peace in the valley. And where the lions and the lambs lie down together. And I love that peace in the valley. Let me give you an example. I've been married twice. My first wife, Loretta, rest her soul. In fact, her birthday is this coming Saturday, I believe. But she died in November 9th, 2018. And I was her first husband. She was on her fourth husband when she died. But not only did I officiate her funeral, but I also preached her funeral. And there are people who were amazed that could happen. And I said that, we went through what we went through during the time of the divorce. But over the years, I almost forgot that we were married. It was almost like brother-sister type thing. Yeah. And I saw her about a year before she died for the first time in about 13 years. We would still communicate every now and then via text, just, holidays and stuff like that. So I'm a firm believer. And then even like with her, when we got married, one of her ex-boyfriends was at our wedding, and then even with my second wife, I met her, former boyfriend, and I'm a secure guy. Unless you give me a reason to, I'm not going to add that extra weight and that extra pressure on me and on the relationship. All I can do is, maybe you don't trust them, but you trust your mate. And it's because that's the real deal is, do you trust your mate? Because what happens if your mate runs into that person at an event? What happens if or at a funeral or at church or something like that? Is it like, oh, I can't speak to that person because of that?
Yeah.
But I think that has
Absolutely.
a lot to do with how secure you are, and also how secure you are in Christ. Like I said, in my case, man, neither time. And even my first wife, the one who died, me and her husband, we still text each other from time to time. Like for Christmas and for New Year's and stuff. I thought he was a good guy. And as I told the people at the funeral, he loved her the way that he loved her, and I loved her the way that I loved her. So it wasn't a situation like, oh man, this is your ex, and oh, now I got to be insecure. If it was that case, if it was that way, then chances are you would be with that person. I understand it more so if the person is sliding in their DMs and trying to do the hookups and all that kind of stuff. And as piggybacking also on what Danielle said earlier about women. Now, if women want to cheat, man, there's nothing a guy can do about it.
True.
I remember this late city councilman in San Diego, the late Reverend George Stevens. He said the very thing. He said that when it comes to men try to cheat, and they'll try to cheat at night and cover their tracks. He said women cheat in the daytime. And he said you can pass by the motel and see more station wagons with wood on the side than the law allows.
This is true.
You are not right.
And she has time to get home, make the meal. Not for all of them, but it's just an example that
women cheat in the
if she
daytime.
wanted to cheat, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I just want to help you there a little bit, Dr. Chambers. I think that love is the greatest expression of our being. And I think that that's why how we started the show of doing your work and understanding who you are. It will allow you to give the best love that you can give. And then I think it's not going to matter whether you're an ex, whether your mate is whatever, because as you grow and as you mature, because love is about maturity also, as you mature, then like is going to attract like. And I would just say, if you're attracting people who you say, well, why are they have these, they don't have tools, or they whatever their issues are. I would say, because in psychology, we would call that projection. Whenever you're accusing someone of something or you're wanting them to change, you're usually looking at something that you don't like about yourself. And so I would just encourage you to look at it that way. It's not about the other person. It's always about you. And if you want to rise, I mean, love is like on the hierarchy of needs, like in the middle near the top. So we really absolutely have to know ourselves, love ourselves, think about ourselves first, because all that projection and external thing is just going to get you sorrow, because you've got to have tools, you got to know yourself, or you're just going to repeat the same pattern over and over.
I love that, Dr. Gloria. Projection. For me, and Dr. Eric, you and I have had this conversation. I'm a husband in the making. I'm looking for my wife.
I know that's right.
Not so much looking for her as much as I'm taking the time and allowing God to deal with me and make me the man that I need to be for her. I don't know who she is. I don't have anyone looking over the horizon right now. I'm singing the shot. Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen her? I'm singing the Starlights right now. You know what I mean? But being made, I'm under construction while I am waiting for the time for us to connect, because you want to be as whole as you can be. So as Dr. Gloria said, you don't project your own insecurities on the other person. I find that when I've counseled with couples, when one person is accusing, usually falsely, accusing the other person of cheating, is because they're flirting with the idea of cheating, or they are cheating.
That's why I say a cheater hates to be cheated on.
Yep.
True.
Because they may know what their propensities are. And at the same time, it's like, man, if I do this, what happens if she does? So I just think that that's what you have to do, is think about the consequences of your decisions.
Yeah.
And now there are some women that I know, once you have cheated on them, it's over. There's no coming back from that. They cut you off like AFDC. It's over.
I'm that woman. I'm that woman. And not to be like, oh, if you cheat on me, I'm gonna, but I know that I can't handle that. Some women can, like Dr. Hightower said, he's counseled people that, there was infidelity in the marriage and they came back together, they reconciled, and they're still together, and that's great. For me, I'm just not that trusting because I know me, and it's all about knowing yourself and knowing what your strengths are and your weaknesses are and what you can and cannot come back from. And I've been in a situation like that, and I tried because I really loved that person, but at that point the trust was gone. So now I don't trust that person as far as I can throw them. So now every time they leave the house, I'm thinking like, you're going to see that girl, and that's not fair to them. And it's certainly not fair to me. So I'm that person. I can't come back from cheating. So I hope to get married someday, but yeah, that's
So you
something
just,
I can't come back from.
and I get
I'm
it.
just gonna put that out there.
You're setting the record straight up front. You're setting the record straight up front.
Yeah.
That if you cross this
Yes.
line, there is no coming back. It's like
No coming back.
the death sentence here. Danielle, speaking of love, of course, you wrote a book called Destiny. Tell us
Yes.
about it quickly, will you?
Absolutely. So Destiny is a fiction love thriller. So it's a Christian-based book with an urban twist. So like most moms, Destiny's mom, Maureen, she wanted a better life for her daughter, Destiny, growing up. She had a rough upbringing. Just a spoiler, Destiny was actually a product of rape. So Destiny's mom always wanted to give Destiny the best childhood that she could because she never experienced it. And she did. And like a lot of teenagers, once she grew up, she found her way back to her old stomping grounds, and she had a crush there. So she wanted her crush to see that she wasn't that little girl anymore. And he took full advantage of her youth and her beauty, led her on a life of crime into a very toxic relationship. And they fell in love. But Destiny has this epiphany during a turn of events that gives her a revelation and epiphany of who her mom raised her to be. And she returns to that. And just when you thought it was a happily ever after, her past kind of catches up with her. So it's an ending that definitely takes a turn. So that is Destiny.
And tell us where it's available.
Destiny is available in Amazon, on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, as well as Kindle and select bookstores.
And of course, it's going to be turned into a movie.
Absolutely. I have a script for Destiny currently. So we have pitched it to a few people. So
Awesome.
Thank you very much. So hopefully in the near future, you will get to see Destiny the way I saw it as I wrote it. It played in my mind as a movie. So I have no doubt that it will be on the big screen very soon. When God's will, it's going to happen in his perfect timing. So yes, I'm very
And
excited
Dr.
about
Hightower,
that.
once again, tell us about your book here before we go.
Yes, sir. Danielle, if you need someone to play the role of a male therapist, I'm your guy.
Got you. I got you.
Yes, so 7 Man Secrets That Every Woman Should Know. It's an ebook. It will be dropping this Friday. Celebrate my mom's birthday, which is this Friday. So it'll be available this Friday. Yes, you will be able to get it on Amazon, but I really want to drive you to my website, which is reallovenation.org. That's reallovenation.org. I really want to drive you there. Subscribe to my website. And if you subscribe to my website, the book will be 10% off. So it's dropping this Friday, March the 5th.
Awesome. Okay, and Dr. Gloria, can you tell us if you're working on some projects here soon?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I actually have a number of books, and I'm working on a bunch of projects. But you can go to the Moosai Group, which is my company, MOUSAI.com. And that is Greek for muse. So I am a muse. I want to inspire you to create more art and science. I'm actually working on a TV show as well, Come Together. It's a show, it's a race towards human development or, self-improvement. So it would be pretty cool, a pretty cool concept. I don't know, I have so many other projects, but you can find them all if you follow me also at Gloria and Dr. Gloria Chance on Instagram.
Awesome. And of course, I want to thank everybody. It's almost the bottom of the hour here. So we're going to see if there's any last minute questions coming in from the audience. Once again, if you're just joining us, I'm Eric J. We have Danielle Forbes, Dr. Gerald T. Hightower, and Dr. Gloria A. Chance. And we have been talking relationships, and prayerfully we've been able to, go over a lot of the things that people have questions in their lives for. Let's see if there's any more questions here. Oh, we got a comment there from Lacora saying, "Great job, Eric and the panel. Everybody
Thank
did a great
you.
job."
Thank
And,
you.
I appreciate the
Michelle saying,
questions. Very engaged. Hi,
Great
Michelle. Wow,
presentation.
thank you for coming.
And then we have this right here, Dr. Gloria
Trina,
Chance on
thank
IG.
you. Trina was on it. She was really posting a lot. Thank you.
Trina,
awesome.
yes, Trina. Thank you for coming in, Trina.
Yeah.
So, but again, I want to thank you guys for being a part of tonight's program, I should say. And I don't want to keep you much longer here. Again, the name of Dr. Let's go back to the whatchamacallit here. So this is 7 Man Secrets that every woman should know. Dr. Hightower, why don't you give us one other? I know you talked about the affirmation, and that is also a part of a book called The 5 Love Languages.
Yes, sir.
Here. Give us a little bit more, maybe another nugget from your upcoming book that we should look
Another love nugget
about.
A half
Yeah.
nugget. What about a half
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. So one of the love nuggets from the book, one of the man secrets, if you will, that I really, really want to share with ladies, and that is that we as men, listen, oh my God, this is a huge one. This is a huge one. I'm so glad you allowed me to share this quickly. Dr. Chambers, one of the things about us as men that you really, really need to know is that we have a passion. We have a passion for not so much to be served, but we love to serve. Now, when I talk about serving, ladies, this is a real interesting insight, because one of the things about us, we're very pragmatic, we're very logical in how we think, we're very compartmental in how we think. Well, guess what, ladies? How that benefits you is that if you present what you need to a man in the right way, and this has everything to do with timing. The old adage is timing is everything. And so oftentimes ladies will tell a man what they need or what they want, but they're not approaching him at the right time. If he's watching the game, or if he just got home from work, hamburger. There's not the time to bombard the brother with a scroll of things that's on during the day. All right. So timing is everything. Presentation is everything. Ladies, you can get your man to do anything if you approach him in the right time and you present what you need in the right way.
They said that the way to a man's heart, they said that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. The way to my heart, man, I love women who love sports, especially pro football. And even if you don't like sports, I don't want to be with someone who hates sports.
Right.
Because I've been in that situation before, where it's like, all you do is look at that old football. And I was like, you know what? I could be out at Hooters or some sports bar watching the game with all these
Not Hooters, Dr. E. Not Hooters.
You know what?
You've been doing so good all night. I'm trying to get you this contract. I'm trying to get
Hooters or Buffalo Wild Wings. Even though I haven't been there in a long time.
I'm gonna take both of y'all out back, because we had a little bit of slippage here, so we're gonna talk offline.
For sure.
But I love sports. See, look, when I got in this business, I was 11 years old when I was pretending then to do what I do now. And I was 13 when I got into the business, but my first job was as a sports writer. I covered the San Diego Chargers for 5 years. I covered the Padres for 3 years. I love sports. And, to get with someone who hates sports, that is going to be like oil and water for me, because that is my refuge. I don't watch a whole lot of, I watch a little bit of the news, but my main thing is watching my New Orleans Saints and NFL football and my LA Lakers. Those are my things. That's my refuge.
Your world champion, Los Angeles Lakers.
That's right.
I bleed purple and gold, by the way. I bleed purple and gold. And ladies, to Dr. Chambers' point, ladies, you don't have to be so ensconced into it like we are, but we just love that you would kick it with us when we're watching the game.
That's
we
awesome.
love that. We love it. You may
And
not
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
I've
If
been in
we
the
say
situation.
move the chains, you might not know what that is. I was at a Raiders game, Dr. E. I was at a Raiders game, and every time they got a first down, we were like, move the chains, move the chains. And a white lady jumped up and she was like, what number is Muda Shea? I don't know.
Well, you know what? I mean, as an example, I watched football for 7 years. I had season tickets. I really can't tell you a thing about it, but what I know is I was looking good.
I know
I
that.
looked good for 7 years during football games.
But see, on the flip side of that, Dr. Hightower, like during my first marriage back in the 80s, we had just gotten a VCR. My wife, and she, look, I was
Not a VCR.
Going back.
Just dating yourself, Dr.
Eric, you might not get any play.
Like,
you keep going back like that.
I know. But nevertheless, it was the Betamax. And listen, Dr. Gerald, she hated football, right? All you do is watch that old stupid football. I hated soap operas. All you do is watch soap operas. I was on leave. I was in the Navy at the time. So I was on leave this particular week, and I didn't know how to program via VCR. So I said, okay, not only will I record it for her, but I'll stop it during the commercials. So I had to watch. Man, the next thing you know, I have gotten addicted to all my children. And I'm walking around the house saying, I killed Zach Grayson. I killed that piece of trash. And so I got addicted over here. To that, and then also The Young and the Restless. Like when I was in the Navy on the ship, man, the guys at lunchtime, we'd be sitting in the berthing area, watching the soaps. I say that to say this. You may not necessarily like sports, but give it a try. I've been in a relationship where she didn't necessarily like sports, but man, she would make some wings and stuff like that. Prepare for me on a Sunday. She may be in her own world, but I appreciated that she didn't hate sports, and so there's certain things that, I think those are kinds of questions that you need to ask. And like I said, even if you don't like it, please don't hate it, because this
Just
is
act
my
like you like it.
Because, a lot of times, just like women love shopping, a lot of guys don't like to go shopping. I don't mind going shopping, especially if I can find like a bench in one of those stores where they are, and let me just sit there, and
Just
rest
give
my
her the
feet.
credit card and let her go shopping by herself.
I know it.
You don't have to
Baby, here's the card. Have at it. I'm gonna go over here and chill and read a book.
I know it. That's what I'm saying. So it's a matter of give and take, but nevertheless, like I say, that sports thing, she doesn't have to be the greatest cook, but because I look forward to that also, getting into the kitchen and cooking. I just made some gumbo like a couple of weeks ago.
There you go, player.
And like I said, I'm an unrestricted free agent. Ain't nobody coming through that door to make it.
Sounds like you have your resume.
You might have some tonight. I don't know.
Exactly.
You might have some DMs. I don't know.
Exactly.
DM.
I would just kind of drop some of the references to the golden years.
Yeah. But that's what got us over, and so, like I said, I think it's a matter of learning what it is that inspires people, what makes them happy, because that's one of the questions I think we should ask people. What is it that makes you happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
if you haven't done your work, you do not know the answer.
Yes, sir.
It's a false answer,
yes,
and that's why we create the same mistakes. The very person that could make you happy, if you haven't done your work, you will pass him or her up every time.
Yes. Yep.
And how important is that question? In fact, Dr. Gloria, tell me, what are some good questions to ask people as you're going into this new relationship with them? Because it's a shame that you have people who've been in a relationship for years and they still have no idea what a person's favorite even color is, or their favorite city that they'd like to travel to, or sometimes people just don't ask those questions of each other.
There's not a standard set. You have to know yourself first. So you have to, that then says what you're looking for. So then you know how to ask the questions based on what you're looking for. So like in my situation, because of, I know my profession, I know all those things, I know my relationship history, I know the challenges, the type of men that might be challenged with me, not because of who I am per se, but because of what they perceive that I am. And so I have to know that so I can ask set a set of questions that will make me happy, because now I understand myself. But if I don't understand myself, I might think, going out for chicken wings is going to make me happy. I mean, who knows? It could be something that simple. So again, I implore to everyone, even if you get a self-help book that will help you work through things on your own, just take the time to get to know yourself, uncover some of the patterns you have, and try and heal so that you can find a mate that will speak to your higher self. See, we find mates that speak to our lower self. And that is only going to get us more of the same. Speaking to the higher self, it's not easy, but it's really worth it.
Speaking to the higher self, say, for instance, when it comes to one of the questions that I have, and I guess various others would have, when it comes to men who are dating women like a Dr. Gloria Chance, say, for instance, when the woman is the breadwinner or makes substantially more, how can people get over that? I've never had a problem with it, but say, for instance, for guys who do have a problem, initially, apparently they don't, simply because they end up getting with the person, but everybody can't stand relational prosperity,
True.
whether it be as far as financially, whether it be, whatever the case, everybody can't, stand relational prosperity. How do you address that?
Again, it's on the individual. I mean, I think that, I've been in relationships with, it didn't matter to me until I did my work. And it still doesn't matter if the person's involved. So you got to come to the table. If you don't have the money, then you got to have tools to know how to deal with whatever situation. That's really my main thing again. It doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to be status, but know how to be a man, know the man that you are, know how to treat a woman, and know how to express yourselves and yourself, and to be open with tools that will support me as your woman.
Well, part of the question is how do men get over the fact that their woman makes more? Because you have men who are insecure because of the fact that
well that's what I'm
woman,
saying. Yeah,
okay.
All of those things. Like if you're insecure, I can't tell you personally how to get over it, because again, it is individual. But I think that the main thing is tools. Again, go to therapy, understand yourself, and get your tools. So then you have to understand as a man, why are you upset? Because if you know me, you'll know that I leave my work at work. If you don't know me, you may never know I'm a doctor. You may never know about any of my background, because it takes me a while to share that, because that doesn't say who I am. I know who I am as Gloria, and that's usually how I present.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have someone here all the way from Los Alamos, New Mexico. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, I used to live there in Albuquerque. And so it's good that this message is going all, going all around the world. And let me see if there's any more questions here for the people.
May I take that question?
Go ahead.
From a man's perspective, for most of us men who are really secure in who we are, have a great sense of purpose, it's not going to bother us if it doesn't bother the woman.
True.
Oftentimes, going all the way back to, I believe Danielle has shared it earlier, or maybe Dr. Gloria covered it, about having your friends in your ear. So oftentimes, if her friends are aware that she makes substantially more money than he does, they're like, girl, you can do better than that, because for most people, they determine a man's value based on how much money he makes. What does he do? Not about his character, not about his love for God, not about how he may take care of his family and things like that. But what does he do? How much does he make?
That's a great point.
Girl, he got to make some cheddar if he gonna make your life better.
And I want to jump in and piggyback on what you said too, Dr. Hightower. I do. Yes. I want to piggyback on that because it's so true. Like I get tired of reading posts about, women and their standards, and men are complaining that women can't appreciate a good man because, they think that if they don't make this amount of money or they don't have this. Most women, honestly, they want a good man, and it has nothing to do with how much money they make, what they drive, where they live. Women a quality woman. She just wants to be treated right. And if that man has a great character, if he's a God-fearing woman, and he's like, he really, and not even, I don't even want to use the word potential, because that word can definitely get people in trouble. It certainly got me in trouble before. But you know, you can see, because you just never know what that person has gone through. So you can't base, you know, is this a good man because he has a lot of money and he's financially secure? Because I've dated those type of men too, and they were some of the worst men I've dated, and some of the best relationships I've been in, I made more money than them, and I was happy. So it's the character. It's all about the character. So absolutely. I just wanted to agree with you on that, Dr. Hightower. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. And another quick question that I just thought about is, sometimes people have, it may not be the money that eliminates them from a relationship with a really good person. Mm-hmm. It could be a physical attribute such as height. Because I've seen situations, including recently, where there was this ad. I was on this one site. It was on Black People Meet. And I was just scrolling through there because I get their emails. Sure.
Just scrolling through.
I was.
Just happened to be perusing that area.
I was. I'm always interested in knowing how other people think. But there was a couple of ads. One of them, the lady said the guy, she mentioned all these, he needs to be this, and this, but he needed to be at least 6 feet tall. And there are no exceptions. Right. And then I saw another one, real beautiful sister. And hers, she said that she's like 5'10". And she said, if you're not at least 6'5", don't even bother. How many people are basically depriving themselves of great relationship because of stuff that a man can't even control? You know, when God made you 6'1", and you got to be 6'5", you know?
Yeah. You're in my area now, Dr. Chambers. I've been teaching on this for the last couple of months about choosing purpose over preference. A lot of us have preferences that are not even healthy. And I think Dr. Gloria touched on this earlier. You know, I mean, we all have a right to have our preferences. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think, and this is one of the reasons why I believe that so many Christian people don't trust God to choose their mate, or to at least give them guidance, or, give them some direction regarding the selection of their mate, because they are hooked and just fascinated and consumed by their preference. Danielle touched on it earlier about having a certain type of man and so on and so forth. And that's cool, and nothing wrong with that. But if it's not in alignment with your purpose, you can have a great person who has great stuff, but they may not have great character, or at the very least, they might be a good fit for where God is taking you. Amen. And so I have learned, and I've learned the hard way, Dr. Chambers. Let me confess my mess in here tonight. I learned as I grew and mature as a man, hey, bruh, all of your preferences, they look good, but they were not good for you. And so in the end, I choose purpose over preference. I don't have these surfacey, fleshy, things like, oh yeah, she gotta be, she gotta look like candy. Oh, wait, strawberry, raspberry, all them good things. I love that too. Every man wants to be with an attractive woman. Every woman wants to be with an attractive man. But I encourage you, I implore you, please choose purpose over preference.
I just had to write that down.
If he's not 6'5", if he's 5'11", but he covers you spiritually, he supports you emotionally, he stimulates you mentally, and the brother know how to handle his business financially, baby, you better grab a hold of that man, because we don't have a ton of good quality men who will love you unconditionally like that.
So true.
But it's so sad though. But like I said, on those two ads, both of those ladies were like, it's non-negotiable. But it's sad that they're likely missing out. And then on top of that, how often do you see a guy who's 6'5"?
Well, actually, there are a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but just in your everyday life, I don't see them every day.
It's really strange. I'm only 5'3", but I always see all these really tall men. I meet a lot of tall men.
So everybody's tall to Dr. Gloria. She's only 5'3".
Exactly. That's what all of my girlfriends say. My girlfriends are all like 5'11", and I'm 5'3", and they're like, "Why do you always date these really tall men?" So
I'm not going to lie. I'm tall. I'm 5'8", and so I used to be that woman that I was like, 6'5" is great, but I was just like, I was like, can he be like 6'1", 6'2", because I'm tall already and I'm always in heels. But it's funny because I would always, that was my preference, but I would find, common ground and commonality, and I would find love with someone that was not 6'5" or that was not 6'3" or whatever, So yes, purpose over preference. I love that, Dr. Hightower. I do. It's so true. And I think as you grow and you get more mature, you find that these things are not as important as you think they are when you meet the right person.
Yeah, because when you're older, one of the things that you do is you see, especially us as guys, we see women, and it's the beauty that attracts us, but that's not the beauty that will keep you in that relationship.
Right.
Because there's a lot of guys who had beautiful women, but yet she had a lot of psychological damage from a previous relationship.
True.
Or even that could be traced all the way back to her childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of like understand later, now I see why she was single because of the fact that, or see why he was single.
Yeah.
It could be a very handsome guy,
Dr.
Chambers, going on, but nevertheless, those issues still crop up at certain times.
Yes.
But I think we have to have grace. I don't think that we should judge people because at the time and moment they didn't fit, because we really don't know, was it their issue or was it your issue?
True.
We like to blame the other person for it not working and that they had issues. But the reality is when you're in it and it didn't work, it's both issues. It's both people's issues. I don't think it's fair to blame. And that's what we do too much in our relationships. Back to that projecting. So again, I encourage people, know thyself first, so that then you can hopefully find someone who knows themselves.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. People are so quick to point the finger and place the blame or projection. A lot of it is all projection, because I love the scripture, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So I feel like if someone can project that onto you, that's really what they feel about themselves. People can't really tell you anything about yourself unless they are witnessing it. Like you said, a cheater hates to be cheated on. So 9 times out of 10, if you're accusing your mate of cheating, or you're either doing it or you're thinking about it. So I totally agree with you, Dr. Gloria, on that for sure.
Okay, as we wrap it up for real this time, we're gonna go around the horn here for some final thoughts, because it was just as I was wrapping it up, it just started getting good. Thanks to you, Dr. Dr. Hightower. But nevertheless, final thoughts as far as, what kind of final relationship advice would you give to someone, male and female, or someone who's just getting into a new relationship, as far as what should they look for, or, even what should they do, especially in these COVID days, as people are meeting people for the very first time, and, which it's tough because you don't know who has it, who doesn't, who's symptomatic, who's not. I got my vaccine shot today, but the first one, but nevertheless, I want to make sure that I protect myself, but also I want to be protected. So people are now being resorted to, to the telephone, where they're doing FaceTime or Facebook, doing the Facebook connection there. And I think that there are some advantages there as well, because you get a chance to kind of scroll through people's pictures and see how consistent they are, even from that standpoint. And you may even see some of the activities that they love. So if you see them at a jazz concert, or you see them at a sporting event, and you know that, okay, there's a couple of boxes I can check off right there that I know I don't even necessarily have to even inquire about, because I've seen, several of those kinds of pictures. So there are advantages there. So again, Dr. Hightower, final thoughts on what kind of advice you would give someone.
Yes, sir. I would say for both ladies and gentlemen, dating is for discovery. Dating is not for mating. Dating is not, yeah, let's move in together. Dating is for
Not
discovery.
checking.
And so I really encourage ladies and gentlemen, date very intentionally, but date patiently. I encourage people to take 5 conversations, and I want to be specific and say 5 at length, uninterrupted conversations before you even decide to go meet up. Because through those 5 at length uninterrupted conversations, and I talk about uninterrupted conversations because you got certain people that'll put you on hold, put you on hold. It's like, hamburger, we've been talking for an hour, but I've been on hold for like an accumulated 28 minutes, so you want to have 5 because them putting you on hold is a sign that they're probably not prioritizing you outside of work and, a family emergency or something like that. But if every time you talk to them, they're constantly putting you on hold, they're not prioritizing you. So that's already going to be an issue for me. But if we are having conversations and we have 5 at length conversations where we really get to know each other, gives you a chance to really check on some things about them, character-wise, maybe even you want to check on a few referrals. Are they who they say they are? Do they go to church where they say they go to church? Are they known at church? Men, if you go to her IG, is she doing the Bust It challenge? I mean, it's really important. You know what I mean? She got the Bust It challenge. She got the silhouette challenge. You want to find those things out. Ladies, you want to find out, is he driving $100,000 car, but he sleeps inside of a storage bin? You got to find those kind of things out.
Or the gym. He might sleep in the gym too. You never know.
So do your homework.
Right.
That's good.
So do your homework, have multiple conversations, a minimum of 5 conversations before you even decide to meet up. And the one last thing I would say, Dr. Chambers, is please try to make sure that you have a daytime date. Why? Because if your first or second date is dinner, it already brings a level of ambiance, of romance to the situation. And I'm not really getting a chance to know that person outside of this romantic environment. So try to have a breakfast or a lunch date, or at least a daytime date, so you can really kind of keep that thing on an even keel where you can really communicate with them.
Or the beach.
Yeah, the beach is a good place as well. Absolutely. But it'll help you get a better look at them as a person outside of the romantic piece. Yeah. And it'll help you determine if we have a compatibility of purpose.
I like that.
Okay, Dr. Gloria, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I just say like how you started with the Indy Irie song, and it talked about be careful what you ask for. So I just encourage people to really be clear, like listen to your thoughts, listen to what you're praying for, or even when you ask in your mind, you're actually in some ways praying, because the universe hears your words and will help manifest them, whether they're positive or not. And so it's important to hear your thoughts, to shift those thoughts, and imagine the future that you want. Imagine the mate that you want. Not with any particulars, but to Dr. Hightower's point, the purpose. What is the purpose of your life, and how do you see your life? First is number one, back to yourself. And then once you know that, then what type of person completes that? That's real, and know that in your mind. And just be careful what you ask for, because you may ask for that 6'5" $1 million man, and you might get him. But is that what you really need?
Sure.
Danielle?
I love everything that they both said. I am in total agreement with the both of them. I have experienced a lot of everything that we talked about. I have. And for me, my final thoughts are, and I'm preaching to the choir, patience. Timing reveals everything. It really, truly does. Timing reveals everything. Definitely, like Dr. Hightower said, because you have an attraction to someone, don't go shacking up or cohabitating for economical purposes. Just really take your time and enjoy it. Have fun. I feel like dating is meant to have fun. It's not about sex. It's really being intentional. I feel like when you reach that certain point in your life, that you need to be very intentional, and it can't just be all about recreation. It has to be like, okay, can I see myself with this woman? Can I see myself with this man? if you're looking for marriage down the road. So just be very intentional and check your bags at the door, you know, the past baggage, and really just get to know a person. And those 5 lengthy conversations are super duper important. And so that's it. I feel like just, you know, take time and really enjoy the whole process of dating.
You know, one other point you made me think about, Danielle, is that a lot of times as women, I don't know about men, you guys have to tell us this, when we date, we think, when we start dating, we think that it's like it's going to end in marriage, or we're looking
yes.
for it. And I think that's what we have to get over as women, right? Dating
Absolutely.
is a sport. It should be like enjoyable. You should, like, I love meeting new people and getting to know them. And, you know, you don't have to have sex with everybody. Yes. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, just enjoy the time and the moment.
Enjoy
and when
the
expiration
process.
date comes, then be okay with it.
Remember back in the day, Dr. Hightower, when you know, when guys used to court women?
They still do. They still court women.
They call court, you know, and like my grandfather, they used to call it coating back in the day. Oh, that boy.
It is time to go now. We gotta go. We're talking about coating.
So it's I think as a part of the courtship, that to me is the fun part of getting to know people. And taking the time to get to know them, because if they're a soulmate, like you said, within 3 to 6 months, you have a pretty good idea if they're worthy of a relationship, and probably 6 to 12 months if they're worthy of marriage. Because by that time, anything that needs to fall out of the pantry will have fallen out by then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you will reveal, you know, as the bar sang back in the day, you know, it'll all be revealed in time, you know.
I gotta say this really quick.
Yes, come on, Danielle.
Oh, I'm so sorry. For the women, this is really in my spirit, and this is something that I dealt with. Women, if you meet a good guy and you've been hurt in the past or cheated on or lied to in the past, but you meet a really good, solid guy and you're like, wow, don't sabotage it. Don't think that it's too good to be true. And don't wait for the other shoe to drop. Enjoy that. Really, really enjoy that. Don't think that he's going to be like all the other ones and lie, cheat, and steal from you. Just really say, you know what? I deserve this guy. And if he's treating you good and he's courting you and, you know, he's respecting you, just enjoy it. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop or, you know, think he's up to something because he's being nice. Just say, you know what, I enjoy this. Don't sabotage it. I really felt the need to say that to women because I used to do that.
Yeah, and go get help, because likely you will sabotage it.
Absolutely.
If you have a pattern, if you're already thinking, oh my God, then there's a red flag for yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Danielle, for being a part of tonight's program. Again, your book is entitled Destiny, a Love Story Gone Terribly Wrong. It sounds like it's a very interesting and exciting book, and we are prayerful that you'll get a chance to turn that into the movie. And for those who are watching, you'll be able to say, man, I remember seeing her on We Need to Talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speak it into the existence, into the atmosphere. It's going to happen. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, and Dr. Hightower, again, the name of your new ebook is called 7 Man Secrets Every Woman Should Know, How to Understand and Attract High-Quality Men. And again, tell the people how they can get it.
You can get it by going to my website. It's dropping this coming Friday, March the 5th. And you can get it by going to my website at reallovenation.org. That's reallovenation.org. And you'll also be able to get it on Amazon. But I encourage you, go to the website because you'll get a little percentage off if you do.
Okay. And Dr. Gloria, thank you so much once again for being a part of tonight's festivities here. You're welcome. I'm still looking at the comments from the people. They said there was some good, rich information here. And
thank you, Diana.
They're thanking everybody for being here. And I want to thank you guys. And I'm prayerful that, you know, as a result of tonight's show, that we will be able to shed some light and we'll be able to affirm some truths in some people's lives, you know, that it will give someone some strength that they necessarily need, you know, to whether it be to move on in an abusive relationship that's maybe not even physically abusive, but maybe emotionally. And but I think the bottom line is everybody have to remember that we all deserve the best, and we should
Yes,
not have to settle for anything less than the best
that's right.
in relationships. And I know sometimes it's very difficult to cut the cord on some of them, but just in the best interest of your sanity, it just may be the thing that you have to do. Okay, once again, everybody, Eric J. Chambers here. For more information about what I do, you could always go to my website. It is called, let me see, here it is, The Cut Network. And for those of you who love jazz and gospel music, my show, The Jaspel with Eric J., airs every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific
Yes,
Standard
sir.
Time from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. on Smooth Jazz KIFM 98.1 out of San Diego. Yesterday was the 1075th episode of The Jaspel.
Woo!
It's a
Thank
great
you.
show.
As I
Amazing.
debuted it on
Congrats.
July 10th, 1994. And who knew after all these years that I would still be doing my show? And then also, I want to tell you about my Black History virtual museum. It's called the Tubman Till Museum. And if you go to tubmantillmuseum.org, you get a chance to see it. It's named after my all-time favorite hero, Harriet Tubman, and of course, Emmett Till and his mother, Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley, who was a surrogate grandmother to me. So if you go there, you'll get a chance to see that. And then also, finally, if you want to check out my radio program from yesterday or previous episodes, including when I interviewed Destiny's Child with Beyonce and Kelly and Michelle and other things, you can go to thejaspel.com, and that is the place you click on archives, and you'll get a chance to do that. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, we want you to do a subscribe, hit that subscribe button so that the next time we do this again, you'll be notified immediately that we have a show coming on, and I look forward to that. And y'all, can we do this again sometime in the near future?
Absolutely.
This was
Absolutely.
fun.
It was a lot of fun.
This
Thank
was
you.
fun. And then next time, what we could do is even invite some people to come in and pop in on video to add some of their questions.
That'd be awesome.
And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And so, Dr. G, you guys are getting much love here. So, again, that's it. But what I'm going to do right now, we opened the show with as you guys see, I'm directing and hosting at the same time.
Mhm.
But we opened with India Ari, Ready for Love. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to play a song that I really love by PJ Morton and an artist by the name of JoJo. It's called Say So. So once again, Danielle Forbes, you guys hang out for just a moment, and I'll be back with you backstage. But in the meantime, Danielle, Dr. Gerald, Dr. Gloria, thank you guys for being a part
Thank
of.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
again, thank you, viewers. I'm Eric J.